What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. First I want to say, sorry I haven't done a new episode of Joe Winko Talk in a while. I've just been kind of out of it lately, and also I've been kind of sick earlier, so I couldn't really make an episode of Joe Winko Talk. But I'm making a new one right now, so that counts as something. Also, another thing, this is going to be a very gloomy episode of Joe Winko Talk and another personal gloomy episode of Joe Winko Talk. So just want to tell you guys that. Also, based on the title of this video and everything, this video may be a trigger for some people who suffer from self-mutilation. So if it is and you don't think you should be watching this video because it might trigger you, I suggest you don't watch this video because it's not going to be something you should watch if it might trigger you into self-mutilation. And I don't want anyone to start this because of me, so please do not. So, as I mentioned, this video is going to be about my experience with self-mutilation. So, this was really the only time I really ever tried self-mutilation. And for those of you who don't know, self-mutilation means well, it could mean a lot of things, but the self-mutilation I'm talking about is cutting my wrist. I haven't done that in a long time. I only used to do it back in year 2014 and 2015, and I'm going to be explaining why. So, I tried suicide before, like many times throughout my life, really. The last time I ever tried suicide was in 2014, but I tried it many times before that, in 2010 and 2011. And really, from 2010 to 2014, those were the years where I tried like actively killing myself and everything during those years. But I always thought of death for a long time. Thought of it more now. I'm going to be doing an episode about that soon. But back in 2013, you all know the story. My adoptive mom made me get a retail job, which I couldn't stand at all. And I really hated that job, and I was unhappy. And I really wanted to quit, but mom said, no, you can't quit. You're not going to be my adoptive mom. She's not my mother. I shouldn't call her that. My adoptive mother, she would always tell me, no, you can't quit. If you quit, I'm kicking you out of the house. You're not going to be sitting on your ass in my house doing nothing. So that upset me, really, because I was not happy with this job and everything, and I was thinking, so this is what I stayed alive for? Can't stand this. So I immediately started thinking, well, this is how my mind works. I think if you're not happy with life, and you're not happy with your life, and if there's nothing you can change about it, then you just shouldn't be here then. What's the point? That's how my autism mind works. So I was thinking, okay, so I better kill myself. That's literally what I was thinking. So one annoying thing that people always always say, is that suicide is the easy way out. Like if someone kills himself, they say, oh, that person was a wimp, they took the easy way out. The truth is, it's actually not, there's nothing easy at all about suicide. Suicide is a very difficult thing to do. You have to inflict enough pain on yourself, and you have to try to cause your own death. You have to murder yourself, literally. And that's not an easy thing to do. That's painful. That's very difficult. It might not work at all. None of my suicide attempts work, as you all know. And it could cause a lot of pain, and it's very difficult to do that. So anyone who says suicide's an easy way out is an absolute idiot, really. And it really pisses me off when people say that, too. And another thing is, suicide is never caused by one reason. Yeah, I was thinking about killing myself because I couldn't stand the job at all, but that definitely was not the lone reason for it. There was a lot of other stuff, too. Like, I missed my uncle and everything. My best friend passed away in 2013. I haven't talked about him yet, but I will later. And a lot of other stuff happened, but that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, kinda. But I don't really like that analogy, but it was a major reason. I couldn't stand the job at all, and wasn't happy at all, I wanted to be dead. But as I said earlier, suicide's a very difficult thing to do, and I was thinking, well, how am I going to do this? I can't just tie a rope around my neck again and hang myself. That was not a good thing to do. So I was thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to kill myself, I better get used to inflicting pain on myself. So I was thinking, okay, so I should start cutting myself then. So how I did it was I got a plate and I went outside and I slammed the plate down on the sidewalk and I broke the plate and I grabbed the sharpest shard from it. And what you see in like movies like American Horror Story, when someone cuts themselves, they're doing it all slow and they're like that. It's never like that in real life, just letting you all know. I took the sharpest piece of glass from the plate I could find. I went back inside and I held my arm like this and I had the shard in my hand. And I tried cutting slowly at first. I didn't cut like vertically, and people say that's the correct way to do it, cut vertically. I didn't know about that back then, otherwise I probably would have, but what I was doing was cutting like horizontally across my wrist. And like I tried cutting slow at first, but I couldn't do it because it was too painful. So what I ended up doing was I just started whacking really fast, like slicing really fast across my wrist. And I looked at my wrist and I didn't see any wounds or anything. So I was like, did I even cut through it? And then next thing I know, blood just started pouring down my wrist. And I saw the wounds opening up. And then I was like, oh, I did it. So that's how I started self-mutilation. I would cut my wrist a lot, and even to this day, it's 2017 right now, if you look closely at my wrist, you can still see some wounds. You can especially see a scar right there. That's from when I started cutting myself. Probably more on this wrist, kinda. You can see the scars. But those were all from the time I was cutting myself because I was miserable and I was really angry and miserable about everything. As I explained in my 2014 episode of as I explained in my episode of Joe Winko Talk, of me talking about the time I tried suicide back in 2014. I'll have the link to that in the description. This was all like around that time, but this was before I tried to attempted suicide. And I attempted suicide by overdosing, as I explained in that episode. And this was all in May of 2014. However, other reasons why was I wanted to show people that I was having problems, really. I wanted to show them that I was unhappy and that I was angry about everything. So I thought if people see me with cuts on my wrists, they'll know that I'm angry about things and don't like the way my life is going. Like, I didn't want to just say that out loud, because that would be kind of weird if I did, but it's weird to cut your wrist, too. And that's another reason why. So whenever I was at work, I'd always wear short sleeves, and I'd always make sure the cuts on my wrists were visible. And no one ever really seemed to notice them, really. Like, I know that people saw them, but they never really said anything. They would just, like, not do anything, and one other thing that happened was I remember that when I was working the job and I had the cuts like all over my wrists because one night my adoptive mother made me so mad and I just sliced up my wrists a lot. And I was putting stuff in the bag for the customer at my retail job. One of the cuts tore open while I was moving my wrist, and blood started pouring out, and blood poured all over the bag and all over the merchandise that the customer was buying. And it was a little Asian woman who I was bagging for. She saw the blood pouring out of my wrist. She just got freaked out and she just took off running. She didn't grab her purse, she didn't grab her credit card, she didn't grab the merchandise. She just got freaked out and took off running. people were just staring at me. Like, they stared at me for a moment like this, and then once I looked back at them, they all turned away and just did what they were doing without noticing anything. And I just put the close sign up, and I just went to the back room and just wrapped up my wrist with toilet paper, and came after the blood clotted up. I just came back and started working at the register, and everything was back to normal. No one really seemed to notice anything while I was cutting my wrists, really. And I just was doing that because I wanted people to be aware, because I didn't want to be one of those people where, like, you find out, oh, so and so committed suicide. Oh, why did they commit suicide? They seem to be so happy and doing so well. This is shocking. I didn't want to be one of those people. I wanted people to know, and so, like, when it happened, they were like, oh, well, he was cutting his wrist. He seemed really unhappy here, so yeah, I'm not surprised at all. That's how I wanted it to be, really. And I did try suicide in 2014, in August of 2014. It didn't work. And another thing I eventually discovered from self-mutilation was I looked it up online, and I read that a lot of people are addicted to self-mutilation. And I kind of noticed this. Like, when you cut yourself, what it actually does, there's a scientific thing behind it. Like, it releases endorphins, so you don't feel the pain very bad. And the endorphins, like, increase your mood and everything. Like, they make people, like, happier, or they feel a high off of it, off of cutting themselves. So that's how people become addicted to it. I definitely didn't notice that, but I never got addicted to it. And another thing was, the reason why I stopped was, after a while it started becoming really painful, like after the cuts, like a couple days after the cuts, as they were healing, it would hurt, like my wrist and everything, and I was like, oh, this is too painful. And then eventually, after my suicide attempt didn't work, I didn't want to try it again, because what I forgot to mention in my suicide story episode of Joe Winko Talk was in the days following, even though those pills that I overdosed on and the NyQuil that I overdosed on, even though it had no effect, it actually kind of did. The days afterwards and the weeks afterwards, I started feeling really sick and really nauseated and really uncomfortable for the whole entire time. Not sick enough to die, but just like really sick, and my stomach was all twisted up and my chest felt hurted really bad. And I didn't feel good those days, and it wasn't like excruciating, but it was very uncomfortable. And I didn't want to try overdosing on anything again, and I couldn't think of any other way to off myself. So that's the reason why I never tried the direct suicide again. Like, around that time, I kind of discovered I really do not have to kill myself at all, really. My adoptive mother was saying, oh, if I'll kick you out. Well, if she actually did and I became homeless, I wouldn't have to kill myself to die. What would happen is my body would die on its own, because, as you guys all know, I'm a type 1 diabetic. And as I did in that episode of Joe Winko Talk, how I would die if I became homeless, I would only last 5 to 8 days at most. And that's like most people say that I'm grossly overestimating the amount of time I would last without insulin. That's what I've been told from people who've seen that video, that I'm grossly overestimating, saying that it would only take 5 to 8 days for me to die. That's how long I would die without insulin, because my body would shut down on its own and I'd be dead. Another thing I want to make clear in this video that I wish I would have brought up earlier, people always say that people who self-mutilate, they think, oh, well, why do you self-mutilate? You must not like yourself. You must have low self-esteem or something. Why do you do that to yourself? You're so magnificent. Don't you see that? Well, fuck yeah, I see that. But, that's not the point. It has absolutely nothing to do with what I think of myself. It has nothing to do, do you think you deserve cuts on your wrists? Are you punishing yourself? No, I'm not punishing myself. I'm angry and I hate this world and I wanted to ditch everyone and leave. Yeah, cutting my wrist, yeah, it was hurting myself, but it didn't really matter to me very much. It has nothing to do with my self-esteem. It's that I hate this world. It has nothing to do with me hating myself. And people always believed that, just because I tried suicide and everything, that I hated myself and thought that I should be dead. That is wrong. It's because I hated this world and wanted to ditch this world and be dead. And I'm actually going to be talking about that in a new episode of Joe Winko Talk. But it has nothing to do with myself, like me hating myself. That's not the reason why I tried self-mutilation. I didn't think I deserved to get cut up bad. I was just doing that because I was trying to get used to harming myself, because I thought that was the only way I could die and only way I could escape and ditch this world and everything. That's the only reason why. It had nothing to do with me thinking that I deserved to be dead or anything. And I don't really think of death as a bad thing, because it happens to all of us, young or old. And, God, I was supposed to save all this for a new episode of Joe Winko Talk. This was just supposed to be about the self-mutilation. But that's basically my experience with self-mutilation. Not really a long story or anything. And that's the reason why I started cutting myself. I don't do it anymore. I have no reason to do it anymore. That's the reason why. I don't have to work the job anymore, because as you all know, I ended up quitting. But if you want to know what happened after that, just watch the necrophiliac story in the comments. And if you want to find out what I did next year, because I did try running away and dying, running away to Arkansas and dying, there's another link to that in the pinned comments. But it was a gloomy story, really. And right now, I'm living in this apartment in Wisconsin, a state that I hate and want to leave forever. But luckily, I will be leaving it forever pretty soon, because my adoptive parents are going to be sending me down south to live with relatives, only because they think it would be murder if. Never mind. I'll explain all that later in a future episode of Joe Winko Talk. But yeah, so things in my life are going pretty good, I guess. So yeah, that's my experience with self-mutilation. Let me know what you guys think of all of this and everything. I just wanted to make it clear that the reason why I was doing it wasn't because I thought that I was worthless or anything, or that I was punishing myself. It was just so I could get used to harming myself, because I figured, okay, because I was too much of a wimp to actually go through with killing myself, but I was just working my way up. Just start with cutting the wrist and then eventually cutting the throat. I did that before, and I never wanted to do it again. That was back in year 2011 when I tried cutting my throat. That was the worst thing ever. It was really painful. But not gonna try killing myself anymore, because it's painful and trying to figure stuff out now. Yeah, so, and get to leave Wisconsin forever. Happy about that, finally. And yeah, that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. So please tell me what you thought of all this, and please tell me if you had any experiences with self-mutilation and how did you handle it, and how it was different from mine. Because, some people actually do self-mutilate because they don't like themselves. It's sad, and they shouldn't do that. But those were just my reasons. So please comment and share your thoughts, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.